What's going on, lads? Welcome back to Punch-Ons. This is going to be my UFC Paris reaction video. Sorry it's a little bit late, but I had a busy weekend, so yeah, we're getting it out there now. It was a pretty decent card, probably give it about a 9 out of 10. There were some sick finishes and some pretty solid fights. Main event was pretty mad as well. I was not too disappointed with that, and yeah, the picks were a little bit average. I was a bit disappointed with how the picks went for my first big card of predictions. We did end up going positive after a pretty shaky start. So, yeah, happy to have gone positive, but a couple of picks I'm not all that proud of. But, hey, it's all right. The channel is just in its early stages and no one's fucking watching it anyway. So, anyway, here's what I thought about the cards. I'm going to go through each fight. Look, I took some notes while I was watching the fight and I'll be kind of walking you through these. So, what I'm thinking at the time of these notes is it's live. I'm in the moment. I'm enjoying the fight, and so there might be some stuff in there that doesn't make a lot of sense, but hopefully you can get a bit of a vibe of how I felt about the fights and the card overall, and you enjoy my breakdown. So first up, we had Sean O'Bannon versus Sam Hughes. Oh, not a great start for this one. Look, the wheel of violence was depending on this one. I had an underdog pick of Sean O'Bannon. Look, it was a pretty casual pick, to be honest. I was picking based off vibes, based on marketability. Yeah, not my finest UFC logic there, but sometimes that sort of shit just happens. So, look, I'm not too upset. Sam Hughes, clearly the better fighter. I did say that Sam Hughes was the better fighter and would probably win the fight by decision, and then Sean O'Bannon might get a robbery. Sean O'Bannon was pretty well outclassed in there. I picked Sean O'Bannon by robbery decision, and Sam Hughes got the round 2 submission with a rear naked choke and just dominated her on the ground. Bannon didn't really have an answer. So Sean O'Bannon came out with some pretty retarded side kicks. Yeah, not looking all that impressive. She actually went for her own takedown on Sam Hughes and just got reversed and taken down so easily. We had 2 minutes of absolute nothing in full guard, as is common for women's MMA. The crowd started booing, which was good because it kicked him into action. Sam Page framed up and postured and started landing a few decent shots. Shauna was looking okay and somewhat flexible in her defense, but not showing a lot of urgency to get up. Look, there's a bit of urgency, but just not a lot of technique and not a lot of ability to actually get back to her feet. Hughes gets in side control and ends up in a bit of a crucifix, which looked a little bit scary. But the referee jumped in and almost stopped the fight. He was like, "Shauna, show me something." She was not taking a lot of damage. Like, if you're going to stop that fight, then you should stop the Hamzat fight, really, which they shouldn't have stopped. So I'm glad they didn't stop it, but I was surprised the ref even looked to stop it. Hughes got to back mount, almost had like a side control bulldog choke type thing. Banner was arching up and kicking off and trying to stay busy, so she did eventually have a little bit of defense on the ground. Hughes jumped on a rear naked choke without any hooks in, and Bannon defended it pretty easily. And then Bannon gets to her feet with about 10 seconds to go and gets a little moral victory there. 10-9 Sam Hughes, could have been a 10-8. I know they give the 10-8s a bit more easily in women's MMA, but I scored at 10-9 for Sam Hughes. Round 2 kicks off and Shauna's throwing some left high kicks and some combinations, but she was looking pretty sloppy. I think she thinks she's like Wonder Boy, but she's not. She missed a lot of leg kicks and Hughes was just staying elusive at range. Hughes dropped her and then got a takedown and then chinned her a few times in the after the takedown, and I'm thinking, fuck my life, like this is already a shit pick. Another crucifix from Hughes. Bannon tried to get out of it. I wrote down there that she's got a great ass. She does. That's not a lie. And she was trying to get back up, but Hughes, like in trying to get up, like unlike DDP, who wasn't really showing a lot of urgency, but it goes to show that if you do actually have urgency to get up to your feet, you present opportunities. And Sam Hughes jumps on and latches up the rear naked choke. Bannon taps on her head straight away, and the channel is off to a pretty average start, 0-1. So Sam Hughes, great job. Round 2 submission. Yeah, she was the better fighter, and she's doing decent. So good job, Sam Hughes. Up the card, we had Andreas Gustafsson versus Rinat Fakhretdinov. Pretty disappointing, this fight. I was picking this one to be an absolute war, and it was trending that way. They looked friendly in the weigh-ins, and then they still looked friendly before the scrap, which was a little bit annoyed. Andreas Gustafsson, man, it was a shit performance from him. He came out looking so sloppy, throwing wild overhands like a friggin' windmill, like Juliana Pena, and Rinat just stayed patient, slipped and moved and just landed a good left early and just rocks him straight away. Then lands a big elbow and just fucking destroyed him immediately. Like, what the fuck was that from Andreas Gustafsson? Not a good performance. I think he must have been nervous or just had a shit game plan or just had no game plan, because he went out there swinging haymakers and got immediately chinned and destroyed. It was over in 30 seconds. Renat didn't really have to do much or show much. He kind of just sat there and waited for Andreas to do something stupid, which he did. Renat is pretty sloppy and he looked like the much more technical fighter. And the hype, it's a little bit gone on Andreas Gustafsson. Look, I'm still going to tune into his fights. He's still going to be entertaining, but that was a pretty poor performance. And I did feel like deleting the channel at that point. Anyway, good job, Renat. He's cooking in the UFC. He's got a pretty good little run going now with a couple of decent wins on there. Still think there's some question marks about him, and I think once he gets a good opponent in the rankings, we might see him suffer a loss. But hey, he's a marauder. He's doing good, and he just took out the king of the marauders in Gustafsson. So good work, Renat. Then we had Brad Tavares versus Robert Brycek. I picked Brad Tavares by decision, and it was another pretty dodgy pick by me. I do think a lot of people were picking Tavares, and it wasn't a completely casual pick to go with Tavares. We didn't know much about Robert Brycek, and he lost to Ihor Potieria. So, I mean, not my worst pick in the world, but it ended up being another shit pick, and the channel got started off with 0-3. Round one, they're exchanging heavy early. Brycek's immediately on the front foot. He's landing body shots. Brad Tavares was landing a couple of teeps and scooting around on the back of the octagon. The control and the presence was clear and immediate from Robert Brycek. Then Robert Brycek just lands a big overhand right and drops him bad and just follows up and just starts busting up Brad Tavares. Brad Tavares, he's a tough cookie. He stayed in there and kept his wits about him and got the clinch eventually. But, geez, Brycek landed some good shots on him and busted him up very, very early. Tavares immediately had to get on the defensive and change something. He started they started swinging then after that, and Brycek had some good head movement. But, yeah, Brycek just poured it on him and just kept smashing him. It was not looking good for Tavares. And then Brycek had him rocked up against the cage, and Tavares is turtling and sort of looking like he's about to get finished. But has a pretty good chin, Tavares. You can't doubt his chin. He was getting some good shots, but still staying in there and looking like he was intelligently defending himself. Then he got a crazy takedown, Tavares, which sort of saved him because he was leaking bad out of his nose and the blood was going all over Brycek, and Tavares was looking like he was going to get finished in round one. Tavares, though, he got the takedown, stayed heavy on top for the rest of round one and did a little bit of work. I still reckon it was probably a 10-8 for Brycek. Because I wanted Tavares to win by points, I was sort of going in that mood of, not quite a 10-8. Tavares landed up on top, but really the definition of a 10-8 is kind of they almost finished them, and he really did almost finish Brad Tavares. So big round from Brycek there. Round two, Tavares opened up with some kicks, but it was just Robert Brycek on the front foot backing him up again. Tavares started looking a bit back in it and kind of looked like he'd recovered. I was feeling very worried at that point, though, because it looked like Tavares was just in the same, falling into his traps, and he's leaking all over the place. There was a huge power advantage for Robert Brycek, and I think that's what Tavares was scared of. Tavares tried a takedown, failed it, and he was just getting pushed up against the cage after that. Brycek landed some fast jabs, throwing some leg and body and head kicks. But Tavares did start to find his range and start to land a few of his shots, and the leg kicks were good for Tavares in this round. Not much volume for Brycek. I reckon he did gas himself out a little bit trying to go for the finish in round one, understandably. Tavares was starting to land the combinations and the leg kicks and stuff, and he was looking locked in, and his eyes were wide, and he was starting to take over a little bit. I do think that Brycek was sort of just recovering and resting, and Tavares didn't really take all that much advantage of that moment. We didn't have a lot of volume, but Brycek was just landing single punches, whereas Tavares was starting to get clean with his combinations. Tavares did land a pretty decent head kick at the end of this round and probably took it. The octagon control was definitely in Robert Brycek's favour, but I do think that, and I reckon a lot of people probably thought that Tavares did enough to steal round two and put himself back in the fight. And, you know, I was starting to feel like Tavares was about to have a crafty performance and get it done in round 3. It was all on the line in round 3. I do think it was probably, 2-1 still for Brychek at the end of round 2 with the 10-8, but it could have easily been a 10-9. So it was anybody's fight at the start of round 3. They come out, they start trading early. Brad Tavares was kicking the legs and looking pretty decent and elusive. He landed a good body kick, and his kicks in general were looking pretty good. There was a bad takedown that Brychek stuffed, and that was a bit of a sign of a bad thing to come. They traded against the cage. Tavares started getting backed up, and his footwork started to decline, and he was like sort of tripping over against the cage and basically running away from Brychek. Next thing, Brychek just lands clean on him, fucks him up, jumps on and starts punching him and dropping bombs on the top of his head. Tavares just crumbles and he didn't have the same level of recovery that he showed in round 1. And Brychek, gets it done. Tavares was disputing the stoppage. It could have been a little bit early, but Tavares was done. Brychek would have won anyway, I think, and Brychek has a good performance and gets it done by round 3 TKO. Overall, it was a good performance from Brychek, and he is a bit of a marauder. I think we can maybe... I said this in my predictions that the Poteria fight could have just been that one that becomes a blip on a pretty decent record from Brychek. I don't think he's all that, but he did put Tavares, kind of show up and destroy Brad Tavares. Tavares, he had a pretty bad game plan, and I don't think he adjusted well enough. He was back in it a little bit in round 2, but he was too timid and didn't take the ascendancy in the fight when it was there to be taken. Not too far away from how I saw this fight going, but I didn't quite give enough credit to Robert Brychek. So well done, Robert Brychek. I'll be watching his next fight, and the channel is off to a fucking pretty bad start. I think I was 0-3 at that point, feeling pretty rough. There's a few notes in there like another L, fuck my channel, fuck my life, a few of those feelings. Yeah, after a big night of work and getting home at 2 a.m. to start the channel 0-3 with a few of my multis gone, wasn't my favourite feeling in the world. But we hung in there. Moving on, we went to Patterson versus Trey Waters. Sam Patterson, big fan of him, and he's going to be my first official predicted win for the channel. So I'm a fan of Sam Patterson. I picked Sam Patterson by round 2 TKO. I thought maybe Waters would have a bit of success on the feet and kind of find the range before Patterson would work him out and get in tight and maybe get a takedown and land some ground and pound. But it's not really how the fight went, actually. Round 1, they came out and met in the middle, and they were scoping each other out and, doing the thing that I said. They were feinting. Trey was dipping his head and doing a bit of feinting. I wrote there in my notes already at the start of round 1, I reckon Sam Patterson's going to land. And then they got some heavy leg kicks. Patterson landed the left and was throwing some back fists, landed his jab. Trey Waters had a few good leg kicks. They both were still landing. Stiff jab then from Trey Waters, and then a big right hand that backed up Trey Waters. Started pouring it on, landed big shots. Massive right hand, put Trey Waters on Crip Street, doing the chicken dance, jelly legs all over the place, poured it on him. Great finishing instincts from Sam Patterson, and fucked him up with a standing TKO. It was a massive TKO, and I was pretty hype at that point because we got a fucking pick, and we kind of picked that fight right. I just thought it would have gone over the course of 2 or 3 rounds, but Patterson had enough reads and seen enough to be able to get in there and get it done in round 1, and it was pretty nasty from Sam Patterson. He was really good on the mic afterwards. He even knew like to hold back from swearing because they were on a free card, and he went, it wasn't even swearing, he was going to say I worked my ass off, but he goes, I worked really hard for this. 4 first round finishes in a row from Sam Patterson. He's a problem at 170, boys. He called for 50k and he called for Neil Magny. I think he might have got the 50k as well. So respect Sam Patterson. He's making his way up the welterweight division, and I'm excited for his next fight. All right. Good job. We got a pick. We're 1-3 at that point. We're back. The channel's staying alive. Harry Hardwick versus Carway Fernandez. Oh, tough debut for Harry Hardwick. Look, you got to respect him for getting in there with a more of an experienced UFC fighter at short notice and upper weight class. So the odds were stacked against Harry Hardwick. I picked Carway Fernandez by late rounds TKO or decision, with Harry Hardwick offering him some problems. It was not how it went. round one, Fernandez was looking bladed and in that karate stance and landing early and looking dynamic and just way faster. He started landing some big leg kicks from the start that really noticeably hurt Harry Hardwick. Hardwick was on the front foot, but just started getting backed up immediately as he started getting his legs kicked. Once the legs got kicked straight away, I swear it was sort of over. Hardwick started getting tuned up. He was switching stances over and over because both of his legs were rocked. He'd switch stances. Coway would kick again, like landing massive, hard kicks. He just got some huge damage on especially the right leg of Hardwick early on. And then that allowed Fernandez to just enter a flow state, and he did. He just got into a flow state. He looked comfortable and calm in there. A mad spinning back fist from Coway Fernandez. Hardwick can barely get up, and then a big uppercut and leg combo from Coway, and he just lands another leg kick, and down goes Harry Hardwick, and he's trying to crawl along the ground like a zombie, but the ref does the right thing and comes and steps in. Fernandez showed that he was on another level to Hardwick, but hey, that's not a big blight on Hardwick. Look, I don't think there's a reason why he's not been in the UFC yet, and on 5 days' notice, he got made to look like he didn't belong in there. So he was kind of looking like Junior Tafa out there with his legs just getting starched. Pretty funny finish. Felt bad for Harry Hardwick, but Coway Fernandez, he's looking good. He stood his base throughout the boos on the mic as well. The French crowd was fucking into the Brazilian fighters. There must be a bit of a rivalry going there. Well, it was. The whole card was a bit of a Brazil versus France sort of vibe going on. But, Coway Fernandez looked really good. Got a big win. I want to see him get some decent matchups in the rankings going forward. He's a good-looking prospect, Fernandez. I think he's somewhat young as well. Looks like he's coming into his prime. Coway Fernandez, round one, leg kick TKO, nasty stuff. Hardwick, I hope he gets a bit more sensible matchup for his next fight. Got that one right. And then we had Marcin Tybura and Ante Delija. Sorry, boys. Picked this one pretty shit. I picked Marcin Tybura to have a crafty vet performance, submission or decision, and it was not even. He did not even look anywhere remotely close to landing anything on Delija. So Tybura came out to Fortunate Son. That was pretty mad. What a G. But I wrote straight away, he's looking morbidly obese, and he got puffed walking up the octagon stairs. Hopefully he smudges him and blobs it up. Fuck, Tybura is fat as fuck. This is going to be bad. So I knew straight away that it was not looking good for Tybura. Delija came in looking locked in with his, he had Tommy Aspinall there with him. Delija started with an absolutely hectic flurry, just 10-punch combination, just came like blitzing across the octagon, landed a few. Tybura, decent chin though, took the shots and took a few good ones, but just got backed up and just slammed up against the cage. He clinched, which was good, and then I wrote that the smudge has begun, and Tybura, was crafty enough to get it to the clinch. Started working for a double leg, stayed in there for a while, but didn't get it done, and Delija was able to separate. Tybura just started looking fat and docile in the cage and just blobbing around, and the inevitable happened, and Delija just chins him bad, fucking just sleeps him, follows up with shots, puts him out bad. Easy TKO for Ante Delija. He got his revenge for the leg break 10 years ago. I suck was what I wrote there. Bro, I had one multi cooking because I occasionally just throw a random one on against my picks because usually they're not fucking all that good. I had a multi riding on Patterson by KO, Fakhretdinov by KO, and Coway Fernandez, and they were offering me $450 for this one off a $20 bet, and I let it ride on this fight, thinking if I can get this fight, then the rest of the legs are pretty sound. But yeah, I let the $450 cash out ride, and thanks Tybura, you absolutely suck. What did we learn? Well, Tybura came in morbidly obese and should be cut. He's probably not too far off retiring anyway. It was a pretty ridiculous pick, and I'm sorry for that one. Although I didn't really watch a lot of tape on Delija, so I just assumed he was another blobby shit heavyweight with 3 nipples and staph infection. But I think it's not even staph; it's something he's had for a while. So yeah, bad pick that one. Umar C and Brenderson Ribeiro. I picked C by a brutal finish. I did pick him by decision earlier in the week, but kind of honed into the finish in the last the last couple of days before the card, because C was just looking jacked and locked in, and it was always going to happen. A lot of people picked C in this fight, and he got it done by a brutal first round TKO right at the end of the first round. Fucking itchy nose, sorry. All right. Round 1, Omar C was on the front foot, looking like he had his distance, landing some good leg kicks, throwing some big overhand rights. He got a takedown and then got into side control. He sort of held his leg to move towards mount, but Ribeiro countered it into full guard. C kept working towards the sub. Then he postured up and threw some big ground and pound. The crowds were going schizo, singing the national anthem. C was doing a bit of work on the ground, and while Ribeiro looked for some subs, C was working well in the guard and landed some good 12-6 elbows. Ribeiro swept and got on top and used it to get up and started throwing some shots. Then C went for a double leg. Brenderson Ribeiro landed a decent knee. Then Umar got back on top with a takedown and started smudging him up against the cage for a bit. There was some, landed some big ground and pound. He was looking strong and heavy and then just kept on dropping shots. Ribeiro's defense on the bottom was not fantastic, and Umar C just kept landing those big shots until the ref jumped in. So Ribeiro gets stopped in round 1 just by doing absolutely nothing, having no defense, not intelligently defending himself. There were some back of the head shots, but it was fine. It was a decent stoppage. C gets it done easily in round 1. The crowd went psycho, and we got another pick, boys. All right, we got a big moment on the mic from C as well. The crowd gave him some respect. He's got a bit of hype restored, Umar C. He did well. His last fight was pretty unimpressive, but again, it's only Brenderson Ribeiro, but he got a big pop from the crowd. He did his job, and Bisping leaned into it and fucking nearly done a puffer valve because his veins were popping on his neck when he was trying to when he was announcing the winner of the fight. So yeah, it was a hype moment. Good job, Umar C, getting the big win in front of his home crowd. I got another pick. And then we had Gomez versus Ruhala. Not much of a scrap, really. I called Gomez by a close but clear technical decision, with Ruhala looking to be the more aggressive, but William Gomez being cleaner and more elusive, and that's basically what happened. In round 1, they were sizing each other up. We got some leg kicks. Gomez was pointing out and doing, having his fingers pointed out, threatening the eye poke, like I said he would. He does like to do that. Ruhala was throwing big shots and missing, but he looked like he was in the fight. Ruhala got a body lock takedown nicely into side control. Gomez got the underhook and popped back up into the clinch. He had his fingers up Ruhala's ass at one point, I think. That's right, fingers in his bum. Ruhala got some cage control in a clinch. He tried for a takedown, but Gomez's takedown defense was looking decent. Ruhala was trying to make it that grindy, kind of dirty style of fight, but Gomez is just good at fighting that clean fight. There was an elbow and a body kick from William Gomez at the end of the round, which could have stolen it. It was a toss-up fight. I did give it to William Gomez 10-9. Don't think Ruhala did enough with the takedown to make it really his round. I think it was a more technical, rangy performance by William Gomez. And in round 1, they have him down for 5 more significant strikes. I think he did the cleaner work in round 1. Round 2, Gomez's kicks were looking pretty fast. Ruhala pushed forward and entered, but once again, William Gomez's takedown defense was pretty good. There was some knees in the clinch from Gomez. Ruhala pointed down, and then William Gomez just jabbed him and sort of half dropped him off balance, and Ruhala did a bit of a roll to get out of the takedown. Gomez started throwing some big shots there and was whiffing them, but landing a few as well. Gomez's jab is fast, but he's there to be taken down. I could see that the takedown was coming. There was a couple of decent clinch elbows from Gomez. Ruhala tried to take down again, but just pushed him up against the cage. He got a good sweep with Gomez rolling and looking for a Kimura grip. Ruhala went into half guard. Gomez's ground game is pretty shit, but he was able to do a bit of butt scooting and get back to the cage. Ruhala did a bit of work on the ground and pound, but William Gomez got back to his feet, and a spinning back kick to the body at the end of the round for Gomez, but I had that as a clear 10-9 for Ruhala, and it was 1-1 going into the third. Pretty average round 3. There was a big eye poke from William Gomez. Wow, who saw that coming? If it was he took his time, Ruhala, and I wrote down that if Kiefer Crosby was the one getting eye-poked, he'd be timed out by now. Like, the UFC just fucking hates Kiefer Crosby, apparently. Gomez started looking a bit sharper. He was landing some knees. I thought maybe there could have been a TKO coming. But Ruhala got another good body lock takedown. Oh, he shot for one anyway, and then he got reversed. Gomez got into the clinch and started kneeing, and there was just a bit of back and forth clinch work, reversing going on. Pretty boring style from Gomez. He knew he had the ability to win a boring fight, and that's what he did. Right near the end of the fight, Gomez started actually doing a bit of work. He got a good head kick and actually hurt Ruhala, and that was able to. It was Ruhala that got the head kick at the end of the fight. That's right, and then started swarming, and it looked like he had Gomez hurt, and then Gomez ended up on his back after a big left hook, and he was on the back and finished with some elbows and had the hooks in, and it was not a good look for Ruhala at the end of that fight there. I could see that fight going either way. I don't think it was a dominant performance from William Gomez. I think rounds 1 and 3 were close and could have gone to Ruhala, but I did score it for 29-28 William Gomez, but I picked him too, so I was a little bit biased there. Pretty shit fight. William Gomez is pretty boring. He's got that way of fighting, so William Gomez by points is always a pretty decent pick. Reece McKee versus Axel Sola. I did call Sola by late rounds TKO, so I started picking up the picks a bit here. Sola was fighting with a bit of an open-bladed stance, and McKee was looking fairly orthodox and simple in his style. I think at one point Bisping said that Sola looks like Conor McGregor. I think that's a pretty L take, that one. He did not look like Conor McGregor. He looked like shit, to be honest. Well, they both looked like shit. It was not a very high-level fight, but good guts shown by both boys, and they just stood and banged. A decent double leg by Sola halfway through round 1, but McKee got back up and clinched up immediately. There was a bit of kneeing against the cage going on, which is pretty boring. But Sola did land the cleaner shots in round 1. You can see here he had 13 to 15, but he did definitely have the cleaner shots because McKee's face was pretty busted up after round 1. There was a fair bit of visible damage and blood on Reece McKee, and I gave Axel Sola round 1 pretty clear. Round 2, Sola was not looking as bladed. He was looking more upright and straight, and it was a little bit of a weird adjustment because he was doing good with that bladed style and he was landing on McKee, but something changed in the fight where Axel Sola straightened his stance up a little bit, and then it allowed Reece McKee to start kind of crashing in with his head on the centre line and landed some shots. He landed one good shot that kind of bothered the eye of Axel Sola, but Sola, played on. Sola landed a few heavy shots, and Sola was throwing the combinations, but McKee was just doing 1-2s and not really. He was landing some good 1-2s to the body and stuff, but nothing more than a 1-2. So Sola could just, D up, block one of them, maybe get landed on with the other one, and then that was the end of the combination. McKee was starting to give a few looks and feints, but not really landing enough with enough volume to make it a clear win. It looked like that McKee was taking over the fight, and then I think Sola felt that towards the end of round 2, and he looked for a takedown, and he got a weird little front choke thing that was pretty ineffective. McKee got back up and then just got held up against the fence, and I gave round 2 to Reece McKee for more effective striking, even though it was also pretty close. It could have gone to Sola, but I think Reece McKee clearly landed the better shots in round 2 and landed a little bit more volume too. So going into the third, it was 1-1, and it looked to me like McKee knew he needed to win that round. He started headhunting and pressuring Sola up against the fence in round 3, and Sola looked to be slowing down a little bit. McKee landed a couple of good uppercuts in the clinch. He landed a good left hand, and Sola, was trading back, and he was in there as well, throwing some weird standing hammer fists, and it landed a decent head kick. They exchanged some elbows. Sola ripped an uppercut and a kick to the body. I think it might have been McKee, actually. Sola Finally, he landed a big left uppercut to the liver. I didn't really even see what it was at the start. I thought it was an uppercut to the chin that dropped him, but he landed a good uppercut to the body first, and then a sick body kick. And I think McKee felt it at that point and winced and had the wind knocked out of him. And then it was just another clean right uppercut to the left uppercut to the liver, and just drops Reece McKee. Look, it was an early stoppage. The ref, he landed about 2 pathetic shots on the side of his head before the ref jumped in, and McKee got up and protested. I think it was a pretty early stoppage. Yeah, he should have let him go out in his shield a bit more than that. But obviously it was in France and it was a chance for Sola to win the fight and the ref jumped on it. So Sola gets a win in his UFC debut. I did pick him by late rounds TKO, so I got the pick, but it was pretty weak stoppage and not the most interesting fight. So I'll leave that one there. This was an absolute fucking sick fight, though. Balaji Oki and Mason Jones. I picked Mason Jones to win by late rounds TKO or decision after losing the fight early because Balaji Oki was going to be faster and more explosive. And I picked it pretty well, even though it got finished in round 2, not round 3. I think I said round 3 TKO or decision. But I had a good feeling that Mason Jones was going to outdog Balaji Oki in this fight. And look, Balaji Oki is dynamic and he's pretty good. He's got skills and he's got power. He's a little bit wild and haymakery with his shots, but he's definitely going to be. He'll finish some people in the UFC. But Mason Jones is just too tough. So round 1, Oki was looking really sharp early. He was landing leg kicks and like sort of fading away and looking good, swinging big. Then like within the first 30 or 40 seconds, Oki caught a kick from Mason Jones, landed a huge overhand right, and then just like dropped chins Jones. Jones bounced straight back up, and then Oki just landed a perfectly timed left hook, kind of like timed it like Imavov timed his shot against the cage with Izzy, and fucking drops Mason Jones. I thought that was it. There was some big ground and pound, and but Jones was just doing enough to stay in there. He did really well to take those shots and still hang in there. So credit to Mason Jones. I knew he was going to be tough enough here. He showed toughness against Jeremy Stevens as well. Oki was landing big ground and pound, but he eventually Jones got back up, and then I think Oki knew he had him rocked, and he kept pressuring and kept pouring it on, and he was doing the right thing. But I just think he could have been a little bit more patient and a little bit more clean because he was landing big shots, but they just weren't quite as clean as the ones that had originally dropped Mason Jones. And I think maybe if Balaji had have taken his time a bit and just landed more precise shots while he had Jones rocked, he could have got him out of there in that first round. But I don't know if that's a little bit of inexperience or just low fight IQ for Oki, but he didn't quite get it done. But Mason Jones's head is a fucking rock because he took some big shots and didn't ever really look like he'd lost his consciousness, apart from like he got his eyes spun back into his head after that first big shot. The crowd was going wild for Oki. And then next minute, Jones just rocks him, and he had Oki doing the chicken dance and just going, and it was sick. And then he jumped on a ghillie as Oki kind of went down. It looked all right, but he sort of fell off it. And then he just jumps on him and just lands some big 12-6 elbows that did a fair bit of damage. But Oki, he had a good recovery as well and got back up. Then he got dragged down again and kind of tripped and submitted back down into the guard. And Jones got into half guard and just started raining down more big 12-6s. I'm so glad they brought in 12-6 elbows again because like they're awesome. They do so much damage. Mason Jones showed some good grappling and some good a good guard game, and passed and ended up in north-south, then back to side control, and he almost got a crucifix and then had a pretty close Kimura as well. He sort of went crucifix and then distracted him with his knees trying to get the crucifix on the left side, and then set up a crucifix on the right, Kimura on the right side, and it looked pretty locked. Balaji did a good job of, showing his heart and surviving, and then Jones just held top position for the rest of the round and landed a few more shots, and yeah, it was one of the rounds of the year. It was a sick round, that, pretty tough to score, to be honest. Balaji Oki was heading for a 10-8, but then Mason Jones, dominated him for the second half of the fight. It's a really tough round to score and kind of exposes a little bit of the problem that we have with round-based scoring. But it was awesome. I scored it for Mason Jones because he took Balaji's best shots and got dropped and almost got out of there, but then turned it around big time and almost got Balaji out of there. And he had a submission attempt and some big elbows. So look, I'm not going to argue if you think it's like a 9-9 round or I don't know if that even is a thing, but like maybe a 10-9 Oki. Doesn't matter in the end, but it would have been interesting to see how they scored that fight if it did go the distance. But yeah, credit to Mason Jones for surviving that round. It was a lot of fighters would have wilted to that pressure, I think, from Balaji Oki early. Round 2, Jones comes out and he's just looking way more settled and calm, and he'd found his range pretty early in round 2. His defense looked better. He was getting his head off the centre line and was starting to take over the fight. Oki was starting to look a little bit gassed and sloppy, and then Mason Jones just got into his flow state. Oki landed a big overhand and they both missed some spinning elbows. And then Oki went for a takedown but just got completely shucked off and almost got thrown down to the ground. Then Mason Jones clinched up and just got a sick judo throw, like just whipped him over onto his back, and that was the beginning of the end there because he showed that he had clearly better grappling and wrestling, and he was stronger in the wrestling as well. And once Oki was on the bottom, he didn't really have an answer for Mason Jones, and that's a good sign for Mason Jones in his run here in the UFC. It's his second run, as I've found out. He was in the UFC before and then got cut and made his way back. So he's looking pretty decent at lightweight Mason Jones. I don't know if he's top level, but he's got top level heart and chin, so good on him for that. Once Mason Jones got him down in round 2, it was the end. He started just pounding him out with big elbows. The ref, Oki did pretty decently to stay in there and defend, but he was fully mounted, and the ref gave him heaps of chances, and Mason Jones just kept landing big elbows. They started getting cleaner and cleaner, like sort of similar to Modestas Bukauskas ran them down on Paul Craig, although they were way nastier, but they were pretty nasty, the elbows from Jones, and Balaji wasn't intelligently defending after a while, and the ref did a good job of jumping in there. So it was a sick performance from Mason Jones. He's got that dog in him, but had a fucking weird post-fight interview. He's a bit of a weird dude, but I think that's just Welsh accent and shit. So yeah, good job, Mason Jones. Good performance. I'm still hyped for Balaji Oki. I reckon that was a good performance from him too. But he was just come against someone who is very, very difficult to finish in Mason Jones. Great fight. Like in one of the rounds of the year, round 1, I really enjoyed that. All right, moving on to Modestas Bukauskas versus Paul Craig. I picked Modestas by round 1 flatline KO. That was my lock of the week. Yeah, I'm not a genius for picking that, but it was there. It was easy money, that one. Modestas, round 1 KO was always going to happen. I think Paul Craig did good to last as long as he did. It was a pretty standard affair, to be honest, of what we expected. Modestas was looking fucking huge and jacked and ripped, bro. He's in the shape of his life. I'm keen to see how far Modestas is going to go. Like he's going to be a problem at light heavyweight for a lot of these guys in the rankings. I can see him moving up towards the top 5. He's improved a lot. Paul Craig was just doing his thing, looking timid, not really much of an answer. Modestas had some heavy low kicks. He was really looking sharp. Craig doing what I expect him to do, throwing his standard body kicks and some ineffective spinning shit. He doesn't have great striking, Paul Craig, but he knows that, and he kind of tries to throw some explosive and dynamic things, but he leaves himself open. His defense is pretty poor as well. I could feel the KO coming. It took Modestas longer than I expected, to be honest. Craig did find the clinch later in the round and did his best trying to work the takedown. Craig's never had good takedown defense. He just likes to capitalise on moments of fuck-ups from his opponent, but Modestas, showed good takedown defense in counter wrestling. Stood his base and reversed Craig up against the cage. Landed some knees and some elbows and some shots in that. Craig was, up against the cage, landing his own knees and elbows, and he's got some pretty nasty knees in the clinch, and he's got that like kind of long legs that allow him to get his knee up to near the head. And Modestas wore a few of his knees, but in the last 30, 40 seconds of the fight, Paul Craig just basically fucking quit. He pulled guard and then just immediately, didn't even pull guard properly, basically just backslammed himself, and then Modestas just immediately started raining down brutal, big ground and pound shots. Johnny Walker, Ming Yang Zhang style, man, just started going bang, 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 like Volkanovski, Yair Rodriguez spec. He just pumped him, and could have, Paul Craig hung in there for longer than I expected. Eventually, Modestas just on top of him, Craig just flailing his knees and legs and arms around, and then Modestas just lands two kind of semi-clean elbows, and then one fucking hellbow, the elbow of doom. Fucking nasty. Paul Craig, I don't think it chinned him. I don't think it completely knocked him out. It kind of looked a little bit like Paul Craig just went, oh, fuck, if I just pretend to be knocked out now, the fight's over and I can fucking retire in peace. I don't know. It was a big shot. It sounded sickening on the microphone on the when they replayed it. But I don't know. It was a bit of a weird delayed reaction from Craig that he kind of looked like he just like went to sleep for a second, like not knocked out, but just went, nah, fuck this, and just decided to close his eyes. Look, he was probably knocked out, but yeah, it was a fucking heavy, brutal elbow that probably should have knocked him out if it didn't. So Modestas looks impressive, looked jacked, looked strong, looked dynamic. Got it done by late round one, like I think like last second round one, flatline elbow KO, flatline, like but knockout. Locked that one. Yeah, I think a lot of people probably got that one right, and it was good to get an actual pick that I was confident about. So, yeah, Paul Craig retires. So that I think probably was to avoid being cut, but maybe he knew before that fight. It's never good for a fighter when they're planning to retire going into a big matchup like this. I'm surprised Paul Craig didn't look for an Anthony Smith or someone a little bit, like a Jan Blachowicz or something, someone just a bit more with a bit less power and a little bit less in their prime. I think Paul Craig was probably owed and deserved a winnable matchup, and that definitely was not one for Paul Craig. Respect to Paul Craig. He's been a good asset for the UFC, and yeah, it's time for him to hang him up. So good call, Paul. BSD and Mauricio Rufy, man. I should have stuck with my original sort of take. I was worried that BSD was going to expose holes in Mauricio's grappling, and he did just that. I picked Rufy by KO, and I did get a little bit more confident in that as the week went on. But look, if you watched my previous video, I definitely was entertaining the idea of a Benoit Saint-Denis grappling clinic and a submission, and I actually had him in my kind of sicko multi that there's a good chance that Benoit can show up, and if he's well coached and if he has a good game plan and his fight IQ is there, he'll out-wrestle Rufy, and that's exactly what happened. So round one starts. Rufy was fainting, but immediately Benoit was threatening the takedown. He was fainting and sort of dropping level changes, and Rufy was biting on it. Like Rufy obviously knew himself that his wrestling is not that crash hot, and he respected Benoit's wrestling maybe like too much. Benoit entered, got double unders, spun him around, and took him down straight down inside the octagon. And yeah, side controlled a full mount for Benoit 1 minute in, looking for an arm triangle. He was keeping like a good close body lock, a la like Hamzat on top of DDP. Rufy, though, credit to him, he worked back up from that really bad position. He gave up his back and Benoit got the body triangle. But Rufy shrimped and like scrambled over to the cage, and he kind of got on top and Benoit slipped off him. So that was good signs for Rufy, but Rufy just did look, I know he's not a grappler, but you gotta take advantage of being on top, and he was on top and should have started at least trying to rain down some punches from Benoit. Benoit's wrestling is obviously good, but I don't think his jiu-jitsu's is so scary that you can't even engage with him on the ground. But I guess Rufy's so dedicated and committed to his striking game that he would rather get up and start striking again than take a free like top mount, like full guard position from Benoit. I thought he could have like come in with some kind of shots and what's the fucking like gutter stomped him. What's a falling Superman punch would have been the play there, because Benoit was just laying on the ground waiting to be engaged on. But Rufy just lets him straight back up and fucking gets taken down immediately. I don't really understand the fight IQ or the strategy there from Rufy. It was very questionable behaviour in the cage, but goes to show he was well and truly outmatched by BSD, which is crazy to say. Rufy can't really wrestle that well. Benoit got him into the McGregor-Khabib position, which was a sign of things to come. He was smudging him up against the cage and landing some shots. Rode him, flattened him out, looked for the arm triangle. Rufy worked his way back to the feet, but he just got immediately controlled by BSD back up against the cage. Rufy complained to the ref about a low shot and convinced Herb to stop it. Like he's like, "Fuck, come on, stop it, bro." And Herb's like, "Oh, fine, sure." Like after 2 or 3 whinges, they were a couple of knees to the box there. I don't know if they landed flush, but yeah, they probably deserved to be stopped. Back on the feet, Rufy was throwing some wild shots, and even Benoit was landing his body kicks and looking decent, actually landing. And Rufy was getting backed up at the end, and it was a clear 10-9 from BSD. And at that point, I was going, "Oh shit! What have I done here? I've talked myself out. I've bought into the hype of Rufy and passed up on my boy BSD." And then round 2 happened, and round 2 was Benoit still like getting getting the bites on the feint from his takedowns, and he's starting to use that to set up his feet, his shots on the feet. It goes to show how powerful the threat of the takedown can be in striking, because Rufi and Benoit are not really in the same realm if it's a striking fight, but the threat of the takedown was the equaliser, and we saw that. Rufi did land a clean flying knee and an elbow, and it was almost flush, I swear. Benoit just took it, but he was busted up at the end of the fight, and I reckon that might have been from it. His jaw was bleeding, and his mouth was bleeding and stuff. But Benoit just goes back to his plan, clinches up, drags him down, got the takedown. Rufi rolled over, but Benoit followed him into full guard. Rufi somehow ended up on top and then let Benoit up again, and Benoit just immediately shot again, got stuffed, and I was like, ooh, here we go. But then Benoit just lands some more body kicks, and then Rufi just starts fucking clip farming and like pausing and throwing like pause shots and just trying to do his stylish thing, which I kind of predicted would happen as well. But BSD stuck in there. He just took him down again, a combination like into a clinch, and once he had him in the clinch, he worked the takedown, spun away from the cage and took him down again, trapped his right arm behind his back, landed some big shots and was, swinging big shots, and then just put his arm around his chin and locked in a bit of a face crank, which didn't really look that far in, but Rufi was looking really uncomfortable. It wasn't really in, but Rufi tapped. So, look, I wrote down in my notes, he fucking is the Brazilian McGregor. It's the Khabib-Conor finish. It really looked very similar to the Khabib and Conor finish, because he was in that sort of similar position, lying down. I don't think they were quite up against the cage, but close to it, with one leg poking out, and Benoit just on his chin, cranking his head and his chin and not really choking him, but just putting him in an uncomfortable position. And Rufi quit. He didn't tap due to not being able to breathe. He quit and said, fuck this, I'm losing this fight and I want out. Benoit Saint-Denis gets it done. Round 2, rear naked choke, face crank submission. What a G, bro. I should have picked him. I should have stuck with Benoit. Lucas Tracy's absolutely frothing right now. And yeah, we learned the thing that I was worried about in my predictions, which was the two things that I said will determine this fight. I said, has Rufi got any wrestling? Answer is kind of no. He did well to get up to his feet at some point, but no good smart wrestling IQ or really ability to have offensive wrestling, and his defensive wrestling was not good enough, and he was too timid on the waiting for the scared of the takedown. And then the other thing I said was, will Benoit be well coached and smart enough to actually use his wrestling? Turns out he was, so good job Benoit Saint-Denis. That's a great win from him. He puts Mauricio Rufi back down where he belongs, down to towards the bottom of the rankings, and Benoit, he might get ranked after this if he's not already. Good job, Benoit and Mauricio Rufi. Another fighting nerd down. Speaking of that, we have the main event of Imavov and Bohalio. I wasn't too far off with this one. I did get it wrong because I picked Baralho, but my logic on the fight was not too far away. It was I picked Imavov to win most of the fight and look cleaner and more accurate in rounds 1, 2, and 3. And then I thought maybe Baralho would be smart and he would be able to change his game plan and take him down in round 4. I was right about Imavov being the cleaner fighter, being in control, looking crisper on the feet, and I said that the smart money was on Imavov by points, and I should have gone with my head and not my heart. I kind of wanted Kyo to win. I thought maybe he would be able to do something fluky or a little bit dynamic and threatening the wrestling. But Imavov's too well-rounded, man. He's too clean. His counters are fucking nasty. His takedown defense was really good. He stood his base really well and shucked off Baralho every time he wrestled him. Kyo did nearly get him down a couple of times with a leg sweep, but even Imavov showed great balance in those moments too and composed himself. Round 1, Kyo was throwing some decent kicks, not really landing. Imavov took the center of the cage and pressured forward. Baralho tried a takedown, but it was easily stuffed. Almost got a foot sweep again after that, but as I said, Imavov kept standing. Kyo was circling to Imavov's power right, and I was thinking that was a little bit dangerous. Kaio, he was in there. He was exchanging, had decent head movement. They ended up clinched up against the cage. Not the most exciting round. And I thought it was a clear 10-9 from Imavov, just looking cleaner and locked in and stuffing the takedowns. Round 2, Kaio's bouncing around. Like Imavov was staying on him and sort of planting. He had his range. He was landing fast counters to the head and body. Like every time Kaio would sort of blitz in with that Whittaker kind of combo, Imavov, instead of sort of going back and getting chinned on the way out, he would just dip his head down and just rip to the body, and like sometimes he'd go left body, right hook upstairs, and yeah, he was landing some nasty shots, hey. And Baralho had a fucking pretty epic chin as well. He took some good shots in this fight. Imavov was poking his fingers out like this that whole round, and I was surprised Goddard wasn't even really giving him warnings or threatening to take a point. That was pretty obvious that Imavov was doing the John Jones trick and getting his range like that. Imavov's got good irregular timing, bro. Like he doesn't throw in the same cadence as other fighters. He's really good at countering, and he's just got like the little awkward timing that puts people off, and Baralho was feeling that. Hey, round 2, Imavov just landed the cleanest shots, kept his range. He was raising his lead leg slightly, like to kind of threaten the teep, and using that to keep his range, which was pretty effective. And I don't know if he learned that off Strickland. That's a thing that Strickland does, is just like teeps a lot, but kind of just raises the knee to sort of feint the teep, and it was working well in this fight. 20-18 clear for Imavov. Kaio walked away from him like 5 seconds before the end of the bell. I thought that was a little bit weak and not really good body language from Kaio. But so easy 2-0 from Imavov. Round 3 was a better round for Kaio. He landed early, leapt in with a knee, but Imavov countered him with a big shot. They were swinging. That was probably one of the more entertaining rounds, that one. There was a nut shot from Kaio, and he had good sportsmanship in letting Imavov have that moment to rest. He took a couple of minutes, and they both got to recharge their batteries, which is, I think, maybe a little bit of a strategy in 5-round fights. I think we see it happen a lot where there's regular fouls that allow the fighters to recharge to go the distance. Imavov just adjusting well. Like Kaio, a bit more active in this round. Kaio did land, I thought, his best shot of the fight in this round. He landed a good straight right, and Imavov, did the nod thing and acknowledged it. But that was about it. A couple more takedowns shucked from Imavov. Kaio didn't really look even close to getting a takedown, apart from like a couple of trips that were close-ish, but not really. And I think Imavov probably would have got back up to his feet anyway. Man, Kaio landed the best shot of round 3, but I still gave that round to Imavov. I think you could maybe argue. And what were the strike numbers? 14-21. The strike numbers were weird in this fight. They did not have it all that right. I don't know if that's the correct total strikes landed stat. I thought Imavov still, it looked like it was probably Kaio's best or second best round, but I still gave that one to Imavov. So I had it 30-27 after 3 rounds with Baralho, going the exact way I thought it would go, with Imavov being the more capable striker. And I thought this was the time for Kaio to change his game plan. But we kind of got kind of more of the same in round 4. There was a kick to the dick from Imavov, but sort of Kaio adjusted his box and played on. Imavov landed a good step-in left elbow and a couple of body shots. He was being really elusive and just countering well again. The slip 1-2 body shot combo from Imavov was money all night. That was we'll watch out for that in Imavov's future fights. The crowd was getting behind him, going, Nasu, Nasu. That was pretty sick. Bit of dirty boxing. Fucking Baralho nearly got the foot sweep, but didn't quite get it. Imavov landed a good 1-2 down the pipe, and Baralho was in it and looking for shots, but he was getting outclassed. And I gave this one pretty clear to Kaio Baralho, round 4. So Imavov 4-0 going into round 5, and round 5 didn't look. It was another decent round for Kaio, but not what he needed. He didn't really, like, they went tit for tat in round 5, and it was I think a Kaio Baralho round. There was another bad eye poke as well, and Goddard got a little bit more stern with Imavov, but it was play on, no point taken. The strike numbers were bullshit. I thought they were going to try and rob Imavov, but it didn't make sense in Paris, I guess. But yeah, in the end, no answers from Kaio, and Imavov just rides it out to a clean decision. think you could give it 50-45. I'm not arguing with that. I think round 5 was probably a KO round. He almost landed a big spinning back elbow at the end. He did try a few things, but Imavov, he was done by then. It was the fight was decided after round 3. I think it was a pretty wishful pick for me to think that KO could change the momentum of that fight. So overall, sick fight, good technical, skillful main event. Not the most exciting, but Imavov, I'm pretty high on him. He's a good prospect. He deserves a title fight, I reckon, even though I don't think he's going to have a chance against Hamzat. Overall, with my predictions, I think I went 7-6 or 7-5 or something, pretty average, but at least we went positive in our first card. Started off really fucking bad, but brought it back towards the end. I got so 0-1, 0-2, 0-3, 1-3, 2-3, 2-4, 3-4, 4-4, 5-4, 6-4, 7-4, 7-5, 7-6. I wasn't too far off with these two though either. I probably could have gone 9-4 if I had stuck with my head and not my heart. So not too bad. Lock of the week was good. The confident picks of Modestus and Mason Jones were good. The sicko multi sucked ass, but at least BSD got an eggs little win in there. Wheel of Violence sucks. Hopefully better next week. In the next week's news, I did okay. I said Gus versus Renat was going to be fight of a year contender. That didn't happen. It was a pretty wash prediction, that one. So was the Delihard Tybura pick. Fuck, I got that one way wrong, and that one cost me. So fuck you, Tybura. I'll be giving him a roast sometime soon. I honestly didn't realise Tybura was going to come in fucking morbidly obese with KFC gravy running down his chin. So, yeah, that's my bad on that one. Other two picks, though, in the next week's news were kind of bang on. I said, look, Paul Craig was going to be cut. He retired, but I probably think it was to avoid being cut. It was a don't fire me, I quit ass retirement, like a Molly McCann type thing. And yeah, I also said the middleweight title would be up for grabs, and I do believe that it is. I think as much as I think Imavov, did what he needed to do and he had a great performance, I still reckon the UFC's hanging out to see what happens on that fluffy RDR fight, and they might do some weird shit. I also think Imavov hurt his foot too, or broke his foot or something, so he's going to need a few months out, and 6 months or 5 months in the UFC is a long time for something to happen and for the landscape to shift and change. So I wouldn't be surprised if the winner of RDR and Fluffy gets an impressive win and gets that title fight. But I do think Imavov is going to fight for the title next when he's back. I don't think the UFC is going to make him win another one. He's on an awesome win streak now. All right, overall, pretty sick card. I'll give it a 9 out of 10. Picks were pretty arse, but I think I didn't do too bad in terms of my rationale for the fight. There was a couple of shockers like the Sean O'Bannon one and the Tybura one, but apart from that, not too far away from, like, even the Tavares fight went similar to how I thought, like how I described it. Gustafsson just went full retard, so that's not my fault. Patterson by TKO, I picked that. Fernandez by finish, I picked that. Fuck these guys. C by finish, I picked that. Gomez by decision, I picked that perfect. Solar by TKO, picked that perfect. Mason Jones by comeback win, I picked that. Bukowskis round 1 KO, picked that. And then fucked up the last two, except I did have good intel on those. I said Benoit could wrestle his way to a win, and I said that Imavov should win this by technical decision. So not the worst start to our predictions. That's about it for this card. Awesome card. Looking forward to some more content coming this week. I'll be breaking down the UFC Noche card, so watch out for some videos there. If you haven't liked the video or subscribed to the channel, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. I want to start building up a few subs so I can get some interactions from you guys. And yeah, thanks for joining us for this fucking 1 hour long fight breakdown. Yeah, enjoyed it. All right. Sweet as, boys. Like and subscribe. Punch on. See you in the next one.